Big. Yep, down there, right there. All right, folks. Welcome to another Dangerous Liberty podcast where everyone here knows that the only thing more dangerous than liberty is the lack thereof. We got an awesome special guest tonight. Appreciate everybody that's showing up already. Mike, hello. Jeff, hello. Jason, good to see you, buddy. And Jason, you're always a winner, even if you don't win a drawing in my book. John Osmond, good evening to you as well, buddy. Good to have you. Summer, glad to have you here.
Are you?
Yeah. Chris, it's always good to have you.
Thanks, sir.
Awesome. If you're just showing up, make sure you throw up a hello. Vince, good to see you, man.
I like the variety of Paramount shirts we got going on.
Yeah, look at that. It's like a Paramount shirt.
It's like Gary on my shirt and Gary sitting here.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm right on your chest, where I like to be. I feel like I'm snuggling right now.
I would love it more if it was you
Right,
instead of a picture.
right below your beard. Bring Sam in here. We'll introduce him, and then we'll go ahead and just get the night going. Hey, Sam, we really appreciate you. Hey, Chris, throw it on that other double thing.
That
right
one
there.
right here?
That one right there. There we go.
right.
That way we have everybody. Hey, Sam, we want to welcome you. I'm gonna let Sam introduce himself. Tell you a little bit about himself. We're really glad that he came on tonight. But yeah, anyways, make him large down there. Go ahead, Sam. Yep.
How's it going? I'm Sam Carlson. I work for Thunder Beast Arms. I'm the social media guy. So if you guys have noticed our social media getting more active, that's me on there. Also have handled like our tech expert support, deal with that. And then now I go to matches and kind of represent the company. For example, going to Box Canyon in Kansas in a couple weeks, and I'm going to get a side stage for everyone to run one of our rifles with one of our suppressors. An Army vet. I was a tanker on the Abrams, the M1A2s. I also host a match here in Cheyenne, Wyoming called the Cheyenne Precision Rifle Hoedown. I don't know if some are familiar. I just did the Sniper's Hide podcast a couple weeks ago, kind of talking about that. That's kind of all I got for an intro.
Awesome. Yep. Man, again, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you coming on, and yeah, we'll dive all into that. And I definitely want everybody else, as we go along, let's talk a little bit about some of those matches you're coming up. Some of you just mentioned that I wasn't aware of. Is Thunder Beast making rifles now too?
No, we're using basically a shop rifle we use for testing.
I see what you're saying.
So basically, it's a custom rifle with a Bighorn Origin action, a 308 barrel. Since we get like the bulk M118 LR ammo,
Yeah.
we can get people to shoot that quite a bit for pretty inexpensive.
Nice.
But I'm going to bring a couple cans down there so people could kind of choose what they want to check out. Me personally, I just want to leave the Magnus on it and let people shoot that. But I'm going to give people a little bit of a choice. The match down there is actually going to be suppressed only. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, we need to, like I said, Ray had invited me to come out, check out your guys' facility and do some shooting in the barn, do some video content, stuff like that. We definitely want to take you guys up on that. We'd love to get out there and hang out with you. Everybody that I've talked to, everybody that I've dealt with at Thunder Beast has just been great, including you. Before I actually talked to Ray or he came on, the way that I think one of the very first videos that I did with Thunder Beast, Ray had come on there and actually answered personally some technical questions, and I knew that he was part of he was actually part of Thunder Beast. I didn't realize he was one of the owners, and I ended up asking him to come on, and he was kind enough to do that. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, and no, we didn't do that, but we will. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next Wednesday. But yeah, no, and Blake, we regularly deal with Blake. He's just been great, and everybody up there is just top-notch folks, and we're glad to be a dealer for you guys. We're glad to have such a great product. I mean, I end up researching products just based on, I don't know, basically what I like, right? And I like researching products. And when we decided that we were going to start carrying, Summer knows I like research products. It's for research, babe. I had to order 2 of these.
It's for the business.
It's for the business. But man, when you get to get the sampling that I end up getting of products, and it's fun to find something that you would use, and then making sure that it's something that you as a brand, as your, I don't know, representing you as a person as well as your company and everything that we've built and have strived to build with this company, putting that out there. And Thunder Beast just kind of checks all those boxes, man. They look great, they perform great, they're the freaking answer when it comes to long range as far as I'm concerned. So again, we appreciate what you guys do, we appreciate your efforts, and I'm glad to see you're jumping on board and doing more marketing, because I think, not that you guys have really built the business almost kind of word of mouth, I would say.
Yep.
T-Bac's reputation precedes itself, but I'd like to see you guys do more marketing too. And I think one of the most and I told Ray this, I think one of the most under marketed things you guys got going on is all the testing that he does. And then, even before the podcast the other day, he was coming on and explaining to me all the things that I didn't know about, how to test sound, how to get these sound readings and all the time and effort that goes into that. And I think that, he has his channel, and I think it's just way underrepresented for what the technical and the informational value that channel represents.
Yeah. I mean, the information we put out there for our testing is awesome. It's one continuous video, so that we're not like changing or alternating anything to fit anything. Actually, so prior to me working here, I'll be coming up on 2 years. And I've been shooting long range for getting close to 5 years. And right when I first started, I learned right away that the best suppressor for precision bolt guns is a Thunder Beast can. And it was like kind of hard for me to believe at first. I'm like, well, you're just saying that because they're in Cheyenne. And then after shooting for a few years and going to quite a few events, you wouldn't see any other suppressors than Thunder Beast cans. They're kind of all over the place. But we have a very industry standard, as we're trying to get some other companies to come along with it, with the way that we test suppressors. I think it was about this time last year, we actually showed a couple suppressors that, had a couple of ours beat at one point. They had us beat by like a dB or two, so we're pretty transparent on that. And then we're showing how we're testing it. We're not hiding it. We're not saying that we're coming up with some number and not showing you guys how we do it. So trying to sound unbiased as possible, like these are the best suppressors out there. And that's not just because I work here, it's because I use them as well.
Yeah,
I had a Surefire can when I was in the Army, and, ours just kind of blow that out of the water.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you talked about the methodology, how you guys are very transparent with that, how you're testing those suppressors. And there's a couple of different, there's whole industries essentially on just suppressor testing, right? Like I think of Pew Science, some of these other ones. And I'm not necessarily directing anything negative I say at any one place, but again, what you don't see is you don't know how exactly that they're coming up with that, and they definitely aren't showing videos the way that you guys are. And then of course you're paying for that content, or you're paying for additional information. Obviously it benefits you to show that stuff, but again, I think that like I said, I sit there and watch just about every video Ray's put out, and I can't believe there's not that many views on those. And I think I'm just like, man, so anything that we can do, and I've told you before the other day when we talked via email, anything that we can do to help with marketing on that, which obviously benefits us too, but we'd be happy to. And we appreciate, I know you guys have shared some of our content, so we appreciate that as well. Mm-hmm. But, and I know looks aren't everything, folks, but I think looks and fit and finish does say something about quality. Mm-hmm. And when you compare Thunder Beast arm suppressors to so many of the other ones out there, just hold them in your hand and look at the difference. The fit and finish on a Thunder Beast arms, when you get that, before you go out there and beat it up or whatever you're going to do with it, it's just impeccable. There's no weld showing. The finish is perfect. Everything's uniform. everything fits up and just, and that's one of the big things too, is how those suppressors actually made up and the threads are actually matching and there's no wobble. All of those things have so much to do, and it's more than just how quiet a suppressor is. You guys are definitely doing well as far as a suppressor that is quiet, definitely some of the most quiet on the market. But obviously that's not everything. And when you're talking about a decibel or two, I don't know that you would even be able to tell the difference. But what you can tell the difference is very easy for the end user to see is point of impact shift when you put it on, take it off, point of impact shift as you're shooting that suppressor through many rounds. So that is as much or more than just how quiet a suppressor is to me.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned the point of impact. I was doing a match, a 2-day match, using my Magnus suppressor, and I took it off after each stage and then put it back on right before the stage. And like a lot of us have really severe OCD and ADD in this stuff, and they like, why are you doing that? You're gonna mess something up, or it's gonna change your point of impact. I'm like, no, I tested it. It's gonna be good. And then sure enough, I did really, really well at that match and proved that the repeatability of our cans is unmatched. I can actually zero with my Dominus on my bolt gun, and then I can put a Magnus or a 338 on there, and it's going to stay. It's going to be within like half a tenth. So I'm always confident if I have to take my can off and put it on, I don't even recheck zero anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's one of the things that I wanted to test and do a video on, was actually seeing what kind of POI there was, the shift with, just like you said, going from a 7 to a 9 to a Magnus. I'm very curious to see that. So that's something that I've been planning to do. So, and to hear you say that makes sense. Because the other thing, folks, being that those are all titanium suppressors, one of the, ultimately, you're not ending up with a bunch of weight on the end of your barrel, and weight doesn't necessarily flex the barrel, but it definitely changes those harmonics, which is the biggest effect on point of impact shift, if you're not aware. Because what's funny is, even if you put a big heavy suppressor on the end of a fairly light barrel, you would think that you're weighing that barrel down, so that now you're going to see an impact shift that's low. And sometimes you do, but typically, even with a heavier suppressor, what you're seeing is impact shifts left to right. And again, it's all about those harmonics. It's not necessarily because of the weight, but the weight does affect the harmonics. And those suppressors being so unbelievably light, it's crazy the performance that you get. Because again, going back to the military and having the exposure that I had to a certain cross section or sampling of suppressors, I was always under the idea like, titanium suppressors are for hunting. They're not for heavy duty use. They're not very durable. All those things, which again, especially with like the Dominus and some of those other ones that you guys, or even the any of the ones that you're putting on that are full auto rated. I mean, obviously, prove that wrong. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, the engineers do a really, really good job when it comes to R&D. And we torture test stuff like you wouldn't believe. I have a video somewhere in my phone of us when we came out with our new 338 Gen 2 can. We had to do a torture test. We were running as many rounds through a bolt gun on 338. I think it was 8 rounds as fast as we could on a 14.5 inch barrel.
Mm-hmm.
That the engineers found out that the uncorking pressure will basically beat up the can and get it hotter than your typical 338s that people see.
Sure.
And I was actually out there to be able to test that, and it was just impressive the amount of abuse that it took. And that goes for all of our suppressors. I helped do the test for the Fly 45 as well. We ran a bunch of 308 through it, and I got to just watch firsthand a first prototype survive all the abuse that we give it.
Wow.
And it just goes to, our engineers just do a fantastic job.
Yeah, that's one thing that I have done a lot of shooting with. I haven't done a video on it yet, but man, the Fly 9 is the first pistol suppressor that I just love. Again, it's so lightweight. It's so
I see
quiet.
you get giddy about it whenever you use it.
I do. I freaking do. Now I will say this, folks. On the pistol I normally run with that's threaded, the thread protector often gets locked on there. I end up having to take some pliers to get it off after I've been shooting for a while. So I got real smart and I put some anti-seize on there. And after that, it was the only time that I started having that suppressor come loose. Didn't come loose enough to I didn't get a baffle strike or anything. But don't put anti-seize on your threads. Gary is the idiot that
Don't grease it up.
the real reason I did that, I just wanted to see if you were dumb enough to put anti-seize on there. I could just show you.
Testing for everybody.
I was
You're
testing.
the test dummy.
Yeah, like I want to make the mistakes
was a
for
dummy
you
there.
people. I'm here for you. Yeah, that works out. Hey, and folks, I just shared the link to Ray's channel. He does a ton of testing on their suppressors, and just like Sam said, very open, transparent about it. They show you it's all in one take. And not that I think that would matter, but I appreciate the effort they do to do that, to show you that they're not trying, because folks, there's a lot of I won't even say it's like necessarily intentional, but there are certain ways obviously that people can and do manipulate the test data, and just the fact that they're doing it all in one take says a lot about their intent behind everything. Let's see. Let's throw up Jason's question. He's been to a suppressor course for one day. Now he's asking
Right?
questions.
He's out in the Midwest in there. Look at this.
Jason, who's normally here, he's out doing some training. But anyways, he's asking, you guys use monocore or baffle stack?
We use a baffle stack. Our new designs are tubeless. They're just fully welded and then turned down. So that's why you can't see any welds. And we're able to strengthen our new Gen 2s by doing that process. Just a baffle stack, welded and turned down. Pretty simple. The way the engineers have done the baffles is definitely a lot different than typical other suppressors I've seen. Obviously, someone, if they want to, they can buy our can and cut it if they want, but they just do a really good job on designing our baffle system.
Awesome. So what's the difference in performance between a monocore and a baffle stack? That may be an engineering question. I don't know.
Yeah, I can for anyone that has that question, what I'll do is I'll message our engineers after this, and they can put a comment on there. So if people are curious, they could explain it a little bit better.
I mean, obviously, that they feel like the baffle stack has some sort of advantage, and that is an area of technical engineering of a suppressor that I don't know that much about, so I don't have a good.
Jason does now.
Jason does.
He should.
Freaking SME.
Should.
He's freaking.
You're gonna be an SME.
He's gonna be coming here giving us classes.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
I'll
Oh,
tell you something. I'll let you do it here. Hey, Jason Batista.
Let me tell you.
That's awesome.
Sam's probably, why are they giving this guy such a hard time? Jason's one of our friends, Sam.
Yeah.
So
Jason and I, Jason, as far as friends that I'm good friends with, I've known Jason probably longer than any other good friend that I stay in touch with.
we've known Jason almost as long as we've known each other.
Yeah. Jason and I, we went through the Q course together, and then we went off and did our own things, and ended up linking up, and now he lives right down the road. He's like a booger. I can't shake him.
All right, here's this.
There are a couple other questions as well.
All right.
Yeah, I saw those.
Let's go through those.
I think this was it. Yes.
Yeah. This is our SF friend down just south of here.
Yep.
Okay.
There's a question for you, Sam.
Yeah, I'll read it out. So if someone's just listening, what suppressor do you prefer for long range if it's between an Ultra 7 and a Dominus? Man, that is a really good question, because the Ultra 7 is like one of our best selling cans. It's what hunters like. It's what, when I first got into the PRS world, when you go to a match, everyone would have an Ultra 7.
Mm-hmm.
great can. And then you got the Dominus. So the Ultra 7 has a 1.5 inch diameter. The Dominus is going to be 1.8. So it's going to be a little bit fatter, have a little bit more volume, but then it's shorter than the Ultra 7. So you might hear a couple different things online, but from me seeing personally, the Dominus suppresses a little bit better than the Ultra 7. It's just not quite an Ultra 9. But, you know, it's saving that length up the end of your barrel. So I'm a big fan of the Dominus. I put it on a 18-inch SPR, and I can't tell you how amazing it sounds. I just put that video up. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and if you get the SR, you know, obviously that's not only do you have a suppressor that is great for long range, but now you have a hard use suppressor that's full auto rated as well. And now Stefan's, if I just did a video comparison, which I actually compared the Ultra 7, the Ultra 9, the Dominus without the SR, and the 338 Ultra and the Magnus. So we got them all compared. I kind of shared my thoughts. There was a couple guys, other instructors standing around, not on camera. So you can go check that out. I got to be honest with you, man. I still for short action, man, I just love the Ultra 9. That's still like my favorite as far as it's just, now again, you get up to the long action. I think the Magnus is the answer. But I will also say, once I've tended to stay away from going back to the Surefire, right? So the Surefire with the locking collar, the original SOCOM issued, man, that thing it was just rattly. I hated that locking collar on it. We just had all kinds of issues. And then I had another suppressor, I think it was an Omega with a locking collar that I hated. So I stayed away from locking collars, and I ordered one of the Dominus SRs just to test. And folks, the way that thing locks up and how solid it is, I almost wish they would just put the SRs on all of the suppressors. But you can get the SR, that secondary retention is what it stands for, on the Dominus, the Magnus, and the 338 Ultra. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
So.
I'm a big fan of our SR collar design. The first cans, me starting here, I got some CBs, and now I've been getting some SR cans. Man, they just thread on super easy. You get them tight and throw that collar. You know, no matter how much hiking or moving you're doing, that thing's not coming off. And then it's also not going to get carbon locked. So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Like that's one thing that I noticed immediately. Just shooting my AR, I dumped a couple mags through it just to see that, because that's another problem with a lot of the locking collars out there. Silencer Co is one that comes to mind. Man, you shoot that, you're gonna get that collar locked up. The suppressor's all carbon locked up, and that SR just comes on and off like it's a brand new, both the suppressor and the weapon. So,
That's the one that was on the AR last time I was shooting.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
what'd you guys think of it shooting
for
them?
Jeff Hahn?
It was fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was -5 degrees outside though, so I didn't get
So it's
to
cold.
enjoy it quite as much as I otherwise would have.
We just got in the last shipment, the last order that we got in some of the Dominus K's in.
Yeah.
Man, those I haven't shot it yet or anything, but they freaking look cool as hell.
Yeah.
I'm usually
Yeah,
not
they-
one to be like, but it looks sexy. I don't know how quiet it is. I mean, it's, you know, it's a basically what, like a 5-inch suppressor.
It was little.
It is little. It's cute.
Yeah, it was
Summer
actually
lights.
it was from guys like you that wanted to just take the edge off, and they wanted a really short, compact can for, you know, being able to run a SOCOM surge cycle through. I actually just put a video up on our Instagram the other day of me putting that on my 18-inch SPR, and it's a little bit hard to gauge, but you could tell that it's suppressing really well for its size.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure too, the other benefit I would imagine, I don't know, you tell me what you think, but being that it is smaller, I'm sure it reduces blowback too, right?
So I haven't personally shot it on like a 10.3,
Yeah.
but I've shot it on a 14.5, and then I've shot it on an 18-inch, and I didn't notice any blowback. I know there's some other entities claiming that, but I have not seen any blowback. We were at the Capitol Armory and Quiet in the Capitol this last weekend, and I was going through a couple weeks ago, and I was going through all the footage of people shooting the 10.5 with their Dominus, and people were commenting like, "Oh man, I don't have any gas in my face. Like, there's no gas."
Yeah.
Obviously, there's people that claim different with their testing, but that's from my firsthand experience. And I, have to go to the range for work weekly, and I shoot these, pretty consistently.
Yeah, no, and the next order that we get, I'm definitely going to get as a demo model and do some testing on that because
That one.
yes, that because that is one of the things, and even Ray and I were talking about that. We were talking about the OSS flow through design. He's like, the flow through design because it's not suppressing anything, and that's how he's like, if you want to flow through, it's kind of, if you're not gas based, you're always compromising with suppressors, folks, whether you realize it or not. You're either compromising with weight, usually you're compromising with weight and durability. I think the Dominus proves that wrong, but you're definitely always going to be compromising. If you're putting on a gas gun, you are going to have to, if you want to reduce blowback, ensure functionality, and have a quiet suppressor, you're going to have to do some tuning on your gas. It's just the way it is. Or you're going to a shorter can that is allowing more gases to escape, therefore it's not creating that back pressure. So, it's just physics, and ultimately they can't get around that. So, throw up Hans' question real quick. Jeff, I will give you my opinion on this, and Sam can jump in too. But I'll tell you, for a dedicated 5.56, the Dominus SR, I think, is just the way to go. If you're going to be running that gun hard, I have never had one of the CBs, which is combat brake, which is a thread-on without a secondary retention. I've never had those come loose, and I don't think they would come loose with normal use. But if you really want a can that's basically a hard use, and by hard use, let's face it, we're talking about full auto rated. I think it's hard to beat that Dominus. And again, I got a video on that. If you haven't seen that, you can go check that out. But I was thoroughly impressed with everything about that can.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You said it best.
As a matter of fact, why don't you guys reach back and grab some of those?
Chris has got longer arms.
Jason, throw up Jason's question real quick, and I will speak to this. And again, if you have something different to say, Sam,
Get these out that easy.
Sam, don't be afraid to contradict me. Summer never is. So, I know a lot of times the military use first round pop compared to the following shots as the can heats up. Jay, I can tell you right now, and again, you need to come over and test our cans as much as you like.
Yes, he used that.
But I never have experienced a first round pop out of the Thunder Beast. Not a single one of them. Which is always surprising to me. I don't even consider that necessarily a bad thing or whatever else, good, bad, or indifferent. But I can just tell you that is not something that I have experienced with Thunder Beast. What about you, Sam?
No. Man, if they were here, I would just have them jump on. But the engineers explained, because I asked that when I first started, I'm like, well, I hear this thing about first round pop, and like I've been using a couple of our cans. Like, how come I'm not experiencing that on like a gas gun? They're like, well, this is why the design of this is why we don't get first round pop.
Yeah, because of the magical sprinkles they put inside of it, Jason. That's why. The magical sprinkles. And first round pop is a real thing. Every other can that I have, definitely does. I have the Dead Air Sandman S, first round pop out of that every single time. I have a couple of Omegas. I don't know that I have a Rugged Suppressor 22. I don't know if there's a first round pop on that or not, but yeah, so the it's a real thing, and it's not something that I typically experience. But for Jeff Hahn's edification,
30 cal cans, nice.
this is the Dominus SR. It has a locking collar down here. This is built to pass the SOCOM shooting standards, the surge cycle testing, and it is just an awesome can. And by the way, Jeff's a former SF guy too, so I'm sure he has some experience with some of the Surefire cans that were usually issued to us. But man, this thing is just a great design. It's ridiculously light. It's like it's probably about the same length as that Sandman S, but
Gary, it's that Sandman's double the weight. I picked it up. I was like,
yeah,
this
we'll
can't
grab
be
it real
right.
quick.
It's
He's like, this is not
this
one.
is
This is not
it.
one of
That's like a
theirs.
solid piece
Yeah,
of steel.
so
there.
here's a Sandman S right here. Like,
I mean,
there's
no comparison.
no comparison.
None.
This,
Should I go get the scale?
I mean,
yeah, go get the scale. Why not? Porque no? Been practicing my Spanish. We got a new lady that works here. I've been trying to prove to her that I'm pretty much proficient and
but I mean,
fluent.
just the we'll use girth alone. The Thunder Beast is a little bit bigger, but is half the weight. I mean, it's
And
insane.
it
feels
seems like
better.
it's half as loud as well. So let me see.
You got to put it down and let it tear.
You
I wish we
tear.
had that for you,
Oh my
Gary. Be
gosh.
half as loud.
Put it down.
That'd be nice.
Put it down.
Don't tell me what to do in front of people. You guys can see this. Go ahead and throw that up there. You done
Heavy
looking at it, or
one?
you want to weigh it? I don't know what that
They
says.
can't see that.
That's all right. I'll tell you what it says. 1 pound, 1.7 ounces versus
Ooh,
It's got to be half.
12 ounces.
it's 12 ounces. 12 ounces. So what math is that? Do the math. I don't want to use
is
my
why we have-
I don't
this is
want
why we have
16
calculators.
I don't want to use
plus
my
7.
fingers. I use just rough math.
What's 16?
12 ounces.
So it's 8 ounces,
16.5.
basically 7.
It's over a 25% reduction in weight.
Oh, that's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
there
our
you go,
Dominus
folks.
CB will be lighter too.
Percent.
Yeah. The Dominus CB, folks, is shorter and lighter, but you're going to get the same amount of suppression because of everything that does all the suppressing. So the Dominus CB, you get it without this collar. So it's essentially that long. And it'll be probably, the SR is a pretty heavy duty collar, so
It's
that's
either
probably
lighter.
Do you
2
want me to get a
ounces.
Dominus CB and weigh it?
We don't have a Dominus CB.
Oh, we don't?
Not that we may have one over there, but I don't think we don't own one.
I know I would.
But I'm going to fix that.
We have stock.
Don't
You got to try
No,
it out.
I'm selling them all before you.
If we,
I'm gonna put this back in there. It's weighing the table.
yeah, it almost broke the table.
Thing was paperweight.
yeah.
God.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Jeff,
I
they
don't
do
wanna-
have the Dominus K, which is the shorter version of this. Even again, if you're going for amazing suppression, it's still super lightweight, and
That's okay.
for a dedicated one, I would probably go with the full size Dominus if you really want to suppress both flash and sound. Sorry, Sam. Go ahead, bud.
What I was going to say was man, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I kind of knocked Surefire down like just a point just from my time in the service, and part of me still wants to just have one in my collection just for nostalgia reasons.
Sure.
So I don't want Surefire to think I'm not bashing them. Like, they did their job. But our Dominus SR is definitely just kind of a night and day difference. And that's just because the technology we're in now, we're able to progress stuff to be quieter, lighter, and work better. Same with that dead air can is really, really good. It suppresses pretty well, but like you said, it is just a little bit heavier than our Dominus.
So yeah, so that is the Dominus CB. So that is, I didn't know. I think this one's going in Gary's collection.
It's not going in Gary.
That's my initials. Maybe I need it.
Yeah, there you go.
And so that is, when you look at the Ultra 7, grab that Ultra 7.
That?
No, that one. Yep. Grab that other, that's the Ultra 9 too. So that's the Ultra 7. Folks, this can is quieter. And again, I showed that in the video that we just did. This Dominus is quieter than this significantly. And obviously it's shorter, but we just got more volume there. And then the Ultra 9 is definitely quieter than both of those. And I just love that Ultra 9. I think it's like the perfect, long rifle, short action one, period. I just happen to really like that.
And just FYI, we have a new shipment in. So
Yeah, folks, by the way, so go to our website,
You do?
claim yours. Yeah, we
We
do. We do. That one right there is for sale.
Hey,
Chris,
babe.
I can help you with the paperwork.
Hey, babe.
we can put you on a payment plan. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about suppressors, PRS, and just kind of, and then we'll get into, one of the things we were talking about prior to coming on is some of your advice when it comes to not even suppressor related, but just getting into PRS, your perspective of what people can do or should do besides get training. Folks, you need to come to our long range course so you can get a good foundation so that you can take that on and be successful. But tell us a little bit about your PRS experience, and now you're getting into NRL, and explain the difference between those two.
PRS is the Precision Rifle Series, so it is basically your stage is going to be laid out in a handbook. It's going to tell you what targets there are, what ranges, and what obstacles you have to use, and you have 2 minutes. NRL used to be like that, but now they have the hunter matches, which is basically you're hiking around and you reach a point or a flagpole, and there's going to be an RO there, and they're going to be like, there is this, and this target. You have to find them, range them, and engage them in 4 or 5 minutes. So hunters love that match. I think it's great. It takes me back to like my Army roots. I personally like shooting PRS a little bit more. Those NRL hunters, you're kind of hiking by yourself, or if you do a team, that can be fun, I'm sure. But I like shooting with a group of friends, especially the group of friends I go with. We're just there to have a good time, and like we're joking around, and like, yeah, there might be one of us that is shooting really good that might be taking it serious, but it's really fun for me to see a buddy or see any of my friends like constantly cleaning stages. So when people are like cleaning stage after stage, like that's more fulfilling to me than, mentally challenging myself at like a hunter match. Just at this time, I'm going to do them. The owner, Zach, he owns Competition Dynamics, and he does the Steel Safari, Team Safari, Sniper Adventure Challenge, and all that stuff. And those are super fantastic matches. It just comes down to personal preference. So that's kind of the difference between the two. The other thing for the NRL hunter is there's a power factor you have to meet. So you can't they just added 25 caliber bullets, I think last year, and it has to be a certain grain bullet going a certain speed to meet power factors. So there's no 6 mils, no 223s allowed. PRS, kind of anything goes, anything under 30 cal going 3,200 feet per second. I run a 6 mil dasher. When I run it on my Magna suppressor, like it is stupid quiet. I don't have to have ears in. I can think and concentrate on my wind calls or like what I need to do for the stage. That's primarily what you'll see in PRS is 6.5 Creed, 6 Creed, and then all the 6mm variants. People shoot TAC class, so they'll shoot 308 or 223. I have a 223 bolt gun that it's kind of an underground thing, but you can get a reamer for a 223 barrel to load those 88 grain ELD bullets, and you can seat them long using MDT magazines, and you can get pushing those out of a straight 223 about like just over 2,800 feet per second. And when you line those ballistics up to a dasher, they're the same all the way out to 1,000.
Wow.
So it's really, really an underestimated cartridge, and I use mine quite a bit. I haven't got the balls to really take it to a 2-day PRS match yet, but I'm hoping this year I bust it out.
And throw up now Stefan's comment down there at the bottom. So that's something that we are definitely looking at. What I want to do, number one, personally, I just want to get into competition, and again, both with pistol, rifle, and long range. That was one of the. We're running a business, right? So I have zero time, but that's definitely something I definitely want to do, and hopefully we can get to a point to where we can get enough, a couple of employees here doing some tasking to where it's not me and Summer working till 2 a.m. every day. But we'll get there. But with that being said, I do want to have a PRS match facility. And
Yeah, stands for Precision Rifle Series. Thank you.
And we'll say a PRS type mention. What I would actually like to do is something more of a mix. Sam's describing as an NRL hunter match and a PRS, a little bit of both of those things, with maybe even some endurance events and stuff in between there. Not really endurance, but just a little bit of, you're gonna ruck your rifle out a mile or something like that.
Endurance.
I know.
Start
I don't
training
know.
now, Chris.
I'll just grab my sabs.
We'll play around with that. But what I do want to do is something different than everybody else is doing.
That sounds cool though.
Or something that's not being done as much, because there's definitely matches out there like that. No doubt about that. Or even kind of a 3-gun match with pistol, rifle, and long range,
Long range.
as opposed to just pistol, rifle, and shotgun. I couldn't care less about a shotgun unless I'm going duck hunting.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we can do. We got a lot of business development happening this year, and it will open a lot of doors for us to have some other time and resources and things like that to develop some of those other opportunities. A lot of fun stuff. There was a question up above about a match in Wyoming, I believe somebody had asked.
Jason did. Right there.
Jason's sponsor.
Nope. There you go. Sam, the one. Says
Oh, this one?
Yep.
Yep. So Sam, are you going to go to Castro for the Governor's Cup competition this summer? Show some stuff off. Supposed to be like 300 shooters. It'd be cool to see some Wyoming companies represented.
Yes. And if this is the Jason I'm thinking of, I think I saw your email. And our apologies for getting back to you after SHOT Show. It's just been kind of crazy. And then we also need to verify with the ownership team. But depending on when it is this summer, I'm doing I have to go to a couple of the PRS events to represent the company. And then Ray has USASOC and a couple other ones that he has to do. So it's possible. Please feel free to ping that email again. So that way we could, respond. Worst case scenario, make sure that we, get you guys taken care of and get you a certificate or stickers and some shirts and stuff.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. What else do we had going there?
You were talking.
So-
you were mentioning about what new shooters would kind of want to.
Yeah.
That just made me think of it because my first match I went to, I had a Remington 700 and 308 that I was shooting 2 different style of bullets and didn't have really a quite good setup, and I got torched. And everyone at that match just happened to not be as helpful and friendly. So it kind of like made, I strive off failure. So if I fail miserably, I just it makes me want to get better. Like, okay, I'm not accepting this. Like, I want to fix it and move forward. So it just put me on the rabbit hole to how to get better. And then the biggest game changer for me was taking a course. So I have my own personal goal every year is to take 1 course. I shoot really decent now, and I host a match and go to matches, and I do pretty well. But I still think that I need to take a course, whether it's long range or not, that I take a course a year. So I've done the Max Ordnance Academy with Tyler Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
That helped me a bunch. So far, the one that I like the most is the modern day sniper one with Phil Vallejo and Kalen. Phil's a friend of mine. After doing one of his courses, you know what it's like. You've had to deal with a lot of instructors. So when you have an instructor that is not annoyed, doesn't get frustrated if you make mistakes, and can get you to figure out something, teaching you in 3 different ways. Well, that's Phil at the modern day sniper. So there would be a guy in our course that would be making the same mistake over and over, and Phil didn't get irritated or frustrated. He just found a different way around it to get the guy to understand, here, this is what you have to do. And just really got us to understand more. And then it's always good also, just because if doing the competition thing, I've seen some new guys come in that don't, it's different for military guys. We have firearms safety burnt into our brains permanently.
Yeah.
And I've seen some new guys that, you'll go to a match and you'll get flagged or anything and everything like that. So I just think it's super important if you're getting into any competition shooting, that you take some course of some sort. That's
Yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
it'll guide you from there.
And people don't understand too, like, I think there's a misnomer, with all the ballistic apps and things like that come out. It has definitely made long range shooting more more accessible than it ever has, and those things are good, but it does not replace the fundamentals of having someone teach you those things, and be able to basically, number one, help you identify what gear is important, where to spend your money. I mean, it's so easy to spend the money in the wrong spots when it comes to long range courses. And I use this example all the time, but there's been times where we have a long range course, a level 1 course, and clients have went out and they bought a new gun, optic, and all this stuff. And then the first portion of our PowerPoint in our long range courses, we talk about what makes a good optic, what we recommend, why we recommend it. Same thing with guns and everything else, the system, that firearm system. And by the end of that course, people were like, oh man, I just wasted all this money. And it's so important to get that basis of understanding. And there's no, I can do all the videos I could possibly put out. I could, you can watch all the YouTube you want, but there is no replacement for that one-on-one instruction with somebody that has experience doing it, both the experience shooting, but also, just like Sam brought up, it's really important to be an experienced instructor, so you have an instructor that knows how to teach, right? And you have to realize that not everybody learns the same. And if you are, an instructor is getting aggravated because a student is not doing what they want them to do. And if a student is not doing what they want them to do, it's the instructor's fault. They're not communicating in a way that is making sense to the student. But because especially, I was also a military instructor, and it's easy in the military, or even like in a federal law enforcement as an instructor, it's easy for us to say, they just don't want to learn. They don't want to learn. They're just hard-headed. They don't want to listen. And you may be able to get away with that. And there's definitely some of that where people are sent to courses that they have to attend and they don't want to be there. But when someone's paying you to be there, they want to freaking be there. And if you as an instructor aren't getting through to them, it's not because they don't want to learn or they don't want to listen. It's because you're failing as a freaking instructor. So, all those things are important. So, and folks, the amount of time and money you'll save wasting ammo and just time at the range, being frustrated and feeling like you can't learn these things, because it is not intuitive. Not only do you need that basis, but the little tweaks. It's the little things that are going to make you a better shooter. There's no doubt about that. So whether it's with us, whether it's some of those other courses that Sam mentioned, go get some real training, and don't think you're going to save a few $100 by not taking a course. Because I'm telling you, it's going to cost you in the long run, and you're going to have a much better experience, and you're going to enjoy the course too if it's put on by a reputable company.
Jeff said, glad to hear you say that. So when I come out in September for long range course, remember this.
Remember that. Remember that.
Well, Jeff, I know where you come from, so I know how you learn. And
It's by yelling. No,
I'm going to yell at you, demean you. That's the only thing that's gonna help you. So that's fine. SF guys and Marines, you gotta make fun of them for them to learn. Gotta put them under a little bit of stress.
I got a funny story about that. One of our buddies we shoot with, one's in the Air Force and the other one was in the Marines. And we were shooting a 2-day all together. And the Marine buddy just got done shooting, and he took a 0 on the stage. And then our Air Force buddy just mocked him like, every Marine's a rifleman. And it was just perfect timing. And put that little jab in the Marines in there.
I bet he didn't score a 0 ever again. I guarantee you.
Actually, he hasn't. He's been burning it down pretty good.
Yeah.
Doing well at every match.
Yeah, man. Failure is often the best teacher. There's no doubt about it. Let's talk a little bit about getting into PRS. There is. I try to take a balanced approach on this, because there is no doubt, folks, there's two schools on equipment, right? There's that school of people that genuinely think they got to have all the best equipment, and oftentimes,
That's what I was
and
thinking.
often, no, look, I take a balanced approach on this because
Balanced, right?
I buy the right equipment, but there are people that think instead of putting the time in training that they are going to, just basically upgrade themselves into more performance. That's not
With the right
necessarily
equipment.
with the right equipment. That's not obviously not necessarily true. But then I also hear the other argument was like, oh, people will even throw on, are like, oh, you're just selling equipment. Like, well, we sell training too. But it's like there's that school of thought like, oh, you don't need new equipment. Well, new equipment does change things. There's no doubt about that. The point here is to make a balanced approach.
The happy medium.
A happy medium to realize, to buy smartly, right? To understand what you're getting into and figuring out where it's smart to buy and understand that, training is always going to be 80-90% of your performance. There's no doubt about it, or more. With that being said, Sam, what do you think is kind of like the minimum equipment that you would recommend for someone getting into PRS?
There's some good factory options out there. You could do like the Bergara has kind of a good factory option. MPA, they have their PMR rifles that are supposed to be like in the production category, so it's under a certain dollar amount. Oh yeah, you have one, right? The ones in that video.
we have. So I've done lots of videos on the MPA. We're an MPA dealer, and I can't recommend those enough.
Yeah.
I think for the value, for what you're getting for the value, and I've done comparative reviews on like the Delta 5 Pro, the new Seekins. I think MPA. I just, again, for $2,500, what you're getting out of that rifle, and like you said, it's quote unquote a production, but it is a custom rifle that just happens to cost what a production gun costs, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Any rifle, as long as it's shooting, you get it to shoot under a minute, that's plenty good to get you started, in my opinion. You want some decent glass. There's so many choices to choose from. I've gone, I started at the very bottom and I progressed. I was kind of a gear whore.
Sure.
And I wanted to try a ton of stuff out. And I've basically tried every single scope out. I've gotten behind a couple friends' Tangent Thetas. They're great and all. My eyes prefer the Zero Compromise. So that's going to be my favorite in that category. But it all depends on what they're wanting to spend. You can get away with the optic that is, right at $1,000, right under that, just to get started. If you're fully invested wanting to get into it, then, you want to upgrade a little bit, maybe get like a Leupold Mark V or a Razor Gen 3 or something in that kind of category. You want to make sure you have something to get your dope. So there's plenty of phone apps. I know Straylock they put that sanction on it or wherever. I started off with Straylock and it has always been fantastic for me. I recently just got one of the Kestrel Elites with the applied ballistics. And that's another crucial, piece of gear, especially because you can put your direction of fire, get your direction of wind, and it is going to give you a really good solution on what you need to hold for a stage. Also, a decent tripod and binos. You're not going to gain anything if you can't watch where people are hitting on a plate downrange. What else? Need a good bag. I bought a Game Changer, luckily, out of the gate, and that was kind of like the best bag. I have one of those Weebad fortune cookies coming. I'm going to give one of those a try. But you can't beat a Schmedium Game Changer. It just works as a rear bag, you can put it on anything and shoot pretty solid. You can, you can go to a match and not shoot, and you can check out a bunch of people's gear. Like my match in Cheyenne is super open. I actually have a loaner rifle program. I have 2 custom built rifles for any new shooter that wants to get into it. I reload the ammo for it. so they can kind of get a taste. And then if they show up to the match and not ready to shoot, well, someone's going to let them shoot their rifle, and they're going to, you know, get a feel for it. So that's my advice on like stocks and chassis as well. I've had every brand of chassis that there is. And when you have a bigger frame, you kind of have to have, you probably know, I have to have a really short length of pole.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them, like I really like the Manners, the MCS, TCS. It's
Mm-hmm.
great, but it doesn't have a short enough length of pole for me. The foundations look fantastic, and I got a foundation. I was all stoked, but the grip of my hand, it just didn't feel too comfortable. So, and then I got the KRG line and ran those for a while, and MDTs is awesome, but it took me forever to narrow it down to I run the XLRs now.
Mm-hmm.
If I went to a match before and just let people let me get behind their rifle, it would have made me make a decision way faster. So I would definitely get behind them before you buy them, because
100%. And that's another thing that I try to talk about enough too, or convey, whether we're doing reviews or recommendations, whatever else too, is you know, personal preference. And I don't care if you're talking about a red dot, an optic, or whatever else, you know, that is definitely a part of it. You know, we try to give like an objective performance review, and then I always talk about what I personally like. But that obviously, you know, at the end of the day, folks, you know, personal preference is going to play a big part in that. And even you know, you might say that you know, you can take a piece of equipment that may just objectively not perform as well, but you're going to do better with it because, you know, you just like it. And there's also, you know, obviously a big mental challenge. I think sometimes people will upgrade their gear and go out and perform better, and it's basically, you know, like a
Placebo effect.
placebo effect. Exactly. You know, you believe in it. So, you know, there's a lot of that plays into it. So you got to get into that. So then, and you were talking about Zero Compromise. I'm getting ready to do a review on their optic right now. I'm a big Night Force guy. I like Night Force. But again, also I've heard a lot of great things. I think Tangent Theta, to me, I've looked through them. I've never done any shooting on them or anything like that. To me, they just meet a threshold as far as a price point that doesn't no longer make sense to me. Like, I know what a 7 to 35 Night Force could do. I know how much that costs, and I have a hard time, you know, doing another $2,000 on top of that to think that it's going to be that much better or anything like that. So we're getting ready to. What do you personally like? Obviously, I'm sure you've shot some Night Force. What do you like in your mind? The features of a Zero Compromise over a Night Force, in your opinion?
First off, the thing I don't like about the ATACers is that whole rear ocular piece moves when you change the power.
Yeah.
So if you're in like a wet and rainy match and you need to put your scope caps on, well, you're going to have to, like if you have Tenebrex,
Yep.
you're going to have to be popping that off and on, which is kind of annoying. I have one of these electronic levels that has a fiber optic cable made by Brandt Concept Systems. So basically the 3 dots pop right under your ocular, so you don't have to come off to see if you're level.
Sure.
So he makes one that works somewhat for the Night Force, but it's like spaced off there. And that's the one thing I didn't like about it. The 7 to 35 is awesome. And especially like if you need to,
Hand me that.
you know, zoom in on something and measure a target, that's awesome for it. The Zico, I just felt like the field of view was better. And then in low light conditions, it just stuff seemed to pop more in the Zero Compromise. I have 2 of them. I have one that has their non-locking turret and another one that has their locking turret. I prefer the non-locking. For how much I'm dialing at a match, sometimes if you have the locking one, you don't have it up all the way and you try to turn it, and you know that just wastes a couple seconds. But now that they have the non-locking, you just grab the elevation turret and dial, which is really, really nice.
Now for competition, do you prefer? It sounds like you prefer dialing everything.
Yeah, it's funny. The group of our friends that shoot, we were. If you have time to dial, I'm always going to dial. Obviously, there might be something like you have these 5 targets and you have to move this amount of times, and they're like pretty far apart, and it
Sure.
makes sense to hold over. I feel like I waste more time like trying to find like, all right, there's 210s, there's 2.4. Okay, I need 2.3, so it's right there. So it's taking me a couple seconds to find it on my reticle, and then you got to place it on the target. Make sure you're accounted for wind if you got the Christmas tree on there.
Sure.
I feel like it's just faster for me. Like, just put my hand up there, dial it super quick, and then I can just hold exactly where I need to hold.
Yeah. You mentioned something, and I didn't realize. I was having a discussion with somebody else the other day, and they brought the Tenebrex scope caps up. So like, I don't know if many people even realize this, and when you get them, they're stiff. But you do know that like the Tenebrex, they rotate this actually rotates, right?
Yeah.
Without moving the actual attachment piece. Most people, I didn't know people didn't know this. So like I'm not rotating anything, and the end cap, the ring that the actual cap is made to rotate. But when you first get them, they're real stiff or slightly stiff.
Oh, okay.
And most people don't even. Most people, and again, I was having. They were like, yeah, they brought kind of the same thing. Like it will obviously rotate if you're dialing this, but if you get to a point to where it start getting in the way of it rotating and running to the gun or whatever else, they just move out of the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So again, they start off stiff and they don't. It's not intuitive, and I don't think most people realize it. And I just always took that for granted because I was stupid enough to try it. I'm like, retard strength activate, and it works. But anyways, that's always. I don't know. I'm probably gonna get hit by YouTube for saying retard twice. I regret that statement. Yeah. So, anyways, it's funny that you mentioned some of those things. And folks, Sam hasn't watched all my videos. Obviously, I don't think he talked about a lot of things that I recommend already. We're a Wee Bad dealer. We're Armageddon gear dealer. I always talk about the Schmedium. I talk about the Game Changer. All those bags are great. I just did
Fortune cookie.
a video kind of going through all the pros and cons of all of them, the ones that I prefer, and just like you said, the Schmedium, the Fortune cookie is great. And the reality is all of those bags in certain situations will have incremental or slight, be slightly better in one situation than the other. But fact of the matter, you do enough training, all of them. I mean, they're so close in design that they're pretty much all made to do the same. But there are definitely some, like you said, the Schmedium I think is one of those kind of perfect size bags. But I will also say that a larger bag, the Game Changer, has its benefits, especially if you're just starting out. It just gives you a little bit more stability where you're trying to really learn that stuff. And in investing the money, if you're going to get serious about that, this is where PRS, especially in PRS, it's just like competitive pistol shooting or anything else. There's a certain amount of money that you need to be ready to invest in and try these different things. Or again, you can come to courses like ours and we provide all this stuff where you can try these different, you can get at least a pretty good initial idea of what you're looking for. But
Yeah, I mean, even the last couple of long range courses, I brought out all the new bags, and then at the end of the course, after people have tried all the ones that we have, they just figure out what they liked and are able to shop right there.
yeah, these bags are like tourniquets. There's one that everybody likes better than the other, and not necessarily needs it. Not that that's a related topic, but anyways, the Game Changer. Something else you talked about as far as equipment goes. Kestrels. Those are always great. And the other thing that I would say, and I don't know how you feel about this, I do think that people get over reliant on ballistic computers and ballistic solutions. Learning what your gun does and having that data and getting and collecting that data definitely helps too. You know, people, I think people just, and what's funny to me, and we'll have them in courses on our level 2, we start talking about ballistic solutions and the Kestrel, and you know, we primarily use applied ballistics, but you know, at the end of the day, we'll have people that are like, well, my ballistic computer is saying X, but my gun is doing Y. And so they're trying to make their gun do what the computer is saying, as opposed to figuring out what the wrong input is into the computer and trying to match it up with the gun. It's like, dude, you're getting a hit. It's not what that computer is saying, but I don't know. Like I said, I think getting out, getting data, definitely those computers are great, but you know, that's another thing that you got to find a balance of, right? Like that computer is not always going to be correct, because there are lots of different conditions taking place that you necessarily can't put into that computer in real time. Or there could be one setting in there that's toggled on or off, or some piece of data that you're putting in that's throwing everything off just by a little bit. So it's you know, something you need to be aware of.
I see that quite a bit at my match. Just see new shooters that, and it's not their fault. They'll input stuff incorrectly. They'll have the wrong scope height. The biggest error that I see is if people are using a phone, is they don't update the density altitude.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge one.
Huge.
I was spotting for a guy, and he was shooting 6-dasher, and we're shooting to a target at like 800 yards. So elevation, just from my knowledge, it should be around 5 mils. And he had 9 mils dialed in. And I'm like, hold on, timeout, man. I was like, check your elevation, because that seems really high. Like 9 mils for you, that's going to be like 1,200 yards.
1,200 yards, yeah.
And sure enough, he's like, yeah, my data was all messed up. And I'm like, give me your phone. And I like made sure that the bullet was correct, make sure the scope height's super important. And then his density altitude was off, and he just kind of guessed the elevation, but it didn't compute it quite correctly. And I just turned on his internal barometer on his iPhone, and it changed it from like a 30.52 to 22.1.
Yeah,
So
well, that's
huge difference, and it
Yeah.
completely changed his dope.
yeah.
You know, I could get in the weeds too. That's another thing people don't believe in. Like, I shoot quite a bit, and I mess around with a lot of different bullets. I shoot A-tips, I shoot burgers, I kind of shoot them all. And people are like, well, what'd you true your BC to? Like, did you go off the published BC, or how you doing it? And I'm like, I just inputted it. I got a good speed and verified it at distance, and it just lines up. I don't have to make a custom curve, or I don't have to true anything. When people are low or high, I feel like it's just goes back to basic fundamentals. I feel like people aren't driving the rifle when they're verifying. They're either rushing, they don't have a good shoulder connection, and it's making them go low or high, or that's my own 2 cents on that.
No, and just going back to what you said too, you know, getting out there and getting rounds down range and getting that experience is what's going to immediately help you identify when that computer's wrong. When you are just looking at a solution and applying the solution like a freaking robot without the technical and experience, the technical information, technical knowledge, and the experience behind it, you know, it's like, oh, you know, the solution's not wrong, I'm wrong. And no, it's like you gotta have, you gotta, again, you gotta get out there and shoot, and you gotta get, folks, I'm telling you right now, the best thing that you can do, in my opinion, is get out there and go with a good old-fashioned dope book. Because you know what? When you're doing your dope book and you're taking down that data, you're learning your gun, learning what your gun does, and it forces you to make sure that you're paying attention to environmentals. Like, you know, when I went through sniper school, I went to sniper school in Sinjar, Iraq, and we were dealing with 20 to 40 mile an hour winds out there. And folks, if you didn't make sure that you were aware of the environment before you ever even started loading that gun up, you weren't passing that course. And again, you know, it's just one of those things where, like learning those basics, learning those fundamentals, and paying attention to what's going on, and learning to read the wind. Because again, you can take that Kestrel, that wind is at your position. That could mean little to nothing compared to 50 yards, 100 yards, or if you're shooting over a defilade where now you're getting into wind gradients. If you can't identify all those things, you're not gonna hit the. So the point being is that getting out there and shooting in real world environment is much more important. That should be your focus as opposed to the electronic solutions of those. Those are helpful. Those are great, but you need to 90% over here, 10% in that electronic solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, that brings up another good thing for new shooters. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chris Way. He's out of Colorado. He does online coaching for long range shooting.
Mm-hmm.
The dude is just super knowledgeable. He just has he's very data driven, and he's got just a different way that he thinks about stuff. So he created this thing called the Craft Challenge. So it's this diamond you shoot at 100 yards, and you're shooting. There's a bunch of different ways, but it's like basically 3 shots positional, like off a bag, standing, 3 kneeling, 3 sitting, and then 3 prone. And then you upload your paper target up to his website, and wherever you're hitting, it's going to tell you what you're doing wrong.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's super in depth. I would highly recommend people check it out. I've done it, and it's made me definitely a better shooter, because it'll have a square. It'll have a 1 MOA and then 2 and 3. So it can kind of tell you what, level you're at. Usually when everyone starts, especially shooting positional at paper at 100 yards, they're pretty, they're at like the 3 MOA mark. And then after working on it, you'll see people get significantly better.
Yeah.
He's a local guy to me, good friend. And his craft challenge is blown up. It was there was like the international PRS competition that was in Europe this last year, and they actually made a stage out of it. Everyone had to shoot the craft challenge. And that doesn't require any ballistics or anything. Like, it's getting you to figure out your fundamentals.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, just the fundamentals of marksmanship, making sure you're doing all those little things right. Like you said, even before you getting into the ballistic solution, those external ballistics, making sure that you have good fundamentals is key, and shooting groups and all those other things. So, no, those are all great points. Yeah, we need to get you guys down here sometime too, and we'll I don't know, maybe we'll come up with next year, something like that, come up with some sort of T-back Paramount event. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
What else we got going on? We miss any questions?
No, I think we got everything.
Yep.
Mike said he took the advanced Kestrel course today. I'm sure that was pretty cool and informative.
I think he does that with Ryan Hay. He's one of the people for Kestrel and Magneto Speed.
Mm-hmm.
He does an awesome job. He does those courses online pretty frequently.
Nice. I'll talk to Mike. Mike's one of our good clients. He comes like literally every course that we have, and I have to pick his brain a little bit on that. See how much. See how.
John asked.
What's that? John was.
Yeah.
Is a Kestrel a must? It definitely helps, John. I would say at least something that gives you good density altitude, whether they actually have the Kestrel drop. Your phone will give you pretty good. There's different apps that you can get for free essentially too. It definitely helps. There's no doubt about that. As far as a must, I wouldn't say it's a must. What's your opinion on this, Sam?
Well, I didn't see his question. What was it?
His question was, is a Kestrel a must?
Believe it or not, I've been doing PRS since 2018. I didn't get a Kestrel until about 6 months ago. I've just been trained on, you want to know your gun number? There's a couple videos on figuring out your gun number. Basically, I'm shooting a 6-dasher, and basically I want to see what lines up with a full value to make it 0.3 mils at 300, 0.4 at 400, 0.5 at 500 to about 800 yards. When it gets beyond that, it doesn't really line up as well. But in between that, you plug into your ballistic solution to find out what mile per hour your gun is. So then it's a 6 mile an hour full value. It's 500 yards. You immediately can just be like, oh, I got to hold half a mil, 0.5. If it's 12 mile an hour, then you just double that. My wife was not too stoked like over the last 2 years, as I was shooting a match almost every weekend because I was getting so hooked on it.
Sure.
That I got really, really good at just realizing what the wind was doing. So I'd be like, people have their kestrels out, and you could rely on other people to give you a rough idea. And I'd be like, let me guess, 14 mile an hour. Like, how'd you know that? I'm like, I don't know. We're in Wyoming, so it's super windy. So I just have a way of doing that. And it actually makes me a better shooter if I just go off my gun number. Sometimes you can get tied to your kestrel. Like, I call it fishing. So on my data card, like if I'm getting ready for a stage, I'll have 4 winds on there. I'll have a 3, a 6, a 9, and a 12 mile an hour. And that's just clogging up my data card. But basically, I could find what column the wind is if there's multiple targets. But that just takes your time when you could just go back to the fundamentals of knowing, like, this is my gun number and it's this mile per hour. This is what I need to hold.
Yeah, and the other thing too is once you get used to seeing, especially to me, the most valuable thing to this day is learning to be able to call wind through mirage on your scope. And when you're doing that and you're doing that well, and you're doing it a lot, and you've had the time on it, it becomes intuitive. Like you can definitely, like, typically on most of the time when we're out there shooting and students are missing or they're having a hard time hitting a target or whatever else, it's like, I'll pull a number out of my ass. And honestly, it's not a big calculation in my head or anything else. I'm just like, I know that's about a 0.4 mil win. So it's kind of doing a much more systematic approach to what you end up doing more intuitively as you shoot more. But I like that method a lot more than taking a wind reading where you are, because again, that wind reading where you are is important. It's not, and that's one of the things I always talk about too. It's like, people always ask, is the wind the most important where you're at, in the middle, at the target? Folks, they're all important. That's the reality, is that the wind is the biggest factor. It is the biggest variable that you're always going to deal with long range shooting. Everything else is a pretty much a quick calculation. And I don't care if you're doing that, if you're just doing that through an app on your phone, or you can do that on paper. It's actually pretty easy to figure out where your elevation is at a target. That's simple stuff. The hard part is the wind. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, there's funky stuff that happens. Like the match I host in Cheyenne, there'll be we get strong winds from the west, and there'll be a sloping hill going towards the east, and I'll have a target on top of that hill. Well, the wind basically climbs that hill and gains speed.
Yep.
So everyone on that target is high and they're right. And they're like, is the range off? The range is off. It's got to be off. Like, no, the wind is just picking up in that certain spot. Same with the valleys, it'll cancel each other out too.
100%. And that's one of the things that people don't realize too, folks, is like when you're shooting across the valley, and especially if you're shooting across the valley, let's say you're shooting at a target that's basically at your elevation, but you're shooting over a defilade. You need to understand that you can see that wind at your target. It might be 6 miles an hour, but as you're shooting across that valley, as you get away from the ground, wind picks up. It's the wind gradient. And pilots know this. Pilots are probably some of the best long-range shooters that there are, or they at least understand it very quickly, because as you get away from the ground, you get away from those wind blockages, trees, foliage, all that stuff. That wind is picking up. So, if you're shooting at a target and halfway through that trajectory, you're now the ground is 60, 70 feet below your bullet, that wind is probably 12 miles an hour there. And those are things that you gotta think about. And most people, again, if you're just looking at that kestrel, where the wind is that you're doing, or even if you have, a windsock at the target, there's a whole lot of other variables going on in between you and that target. One of the questions that just came up, and there again, this is one of those things that's going to go back to personal preference to some extent. I do have an opinion on it just in general, but Jeff Hahn asked mill or MOA. Me personally, I think mill is the way to go. I'll let Sam talk about what his experience and preference is. But I do think personally that MOA is just too fine of a scale, folks. You have 3.5 MOA per mill. So, I can either tell you, hey, you know what, let's shoot this target, at 1,000, the dope on my gun is 6.7. So I can either tell you, hey, shoot 6.7 mils, or I can tell you to shoot 22 MOA. And now you're looking at a scale, or you're dialing 22 or 22.5 or whatever else. It's just too fine, in my opinion, to look at something. It's kind of like looking at a clock. If that clock was in nothing but minutes, and it's kind of a weird example, but again, it's too fine of a scale. What's your thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, same thing. It's too fine of a scale. Even I get it. People can understand what a minute of angle is. It's 1 inch at 100 yards, and half an MOA at 100 yards would be half an inch, and people can kind of grasp that mathematically a little bit better. But when it comes, since I have to take on a lot of new shooters to get into the PRS stuff, once you start shooting far and people have to dial, 20 plus MOA, they're in the second revolution of their turret.
Yeah.
Versus hey, just dial to 7 mils or 7.1. It's oh, they don't have to count or think about ticks a little bit more, the dial says 8 and then there's a bunch of ticks and it skips to 10, but the 9 MOA is not on some turrets. It's like that. It just takes you a little bit longer to read the turret. And then you can't link with anyone either. If you're shooting with other shooters, the majority is going to be mill. So if you're not in that and people are saying oh, I was holding a 7 mile an hour wind, it was, 0.7 to 0.9 for me, that MOA shooter is going to be they have to compute it, and it just takes longer, and it's not going to benefit you.
Yeah, and folks, and again, you guys can go check out on our YouTube page. I've done a couple of virtual online optics course where I talk about that specifically, and I show kind of a better illustration of that. But the fact of the matter is we can sit there and, just like Sam said, 1 MOA at 600 yards is 6 inches approximately, right? And that makes sense in your head, but that's not the way that it plays out in reality. When you're out there and you're looking at that, you're not measuring things in inches any freaking how. You're measuring by what's on your optic. I can have an optic, and I always say this in Oompa Loomps. You don't know what it is, but it's just a freaking optic that is in some weird thing, but my crosshairs and what's on my turrets match up, and I say, hey, you need to go left 3 Oompa Loomps, right? So what you're reading in your scope, ultimately the MOA thing and the correlation that Americans make between that standard system, it doesn't work that way anyhow. So I think definitely mill, and it's funny you say that, Sam, because there are definitely some shooters out there that still use MOA, and that's fine. But I do remember when I was in the military, I did go to a few different long range competitions, and I was one of the few guys out there shooting mills at the time. This is mid 2000, or actually 2003, 2000, or late 2004. So at the time, I was one of the few guys out there shooting mill because most people were shooting MOA. But as people have progressed and they see that just through experience, people have gravitated toward mill for the same reason I'm talking about.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Jason was asking, when is the match in Cheyenne? He might come check it out. And he said he's not the Jason you were referring to, by the way.
Okay. So for the year, I host my match monthly. It's the 4th Saturday of every month. This month it's March 25th, and it's a PRS affiliated regional match. It's just a one-day match. I just took over being the match director for this. This will be starting, I think, my third year, and went from when I first took it over, we would only get like 10 to 15 shooters to where now each month I'm getting like 50 plus. I had 72 signed up, I think, towards the end of the year. And that's just every month. They keep coming, and it just keeps blowing up. But I know it's a competition. The way I run it is really, really laid back, and I just want everyone to have a good time, to have fun shooting. I've got prizes, and I've got like a bunch of fun stages for people to go to. So the fourth Saturday of every month, this one's going to be a little bit bigger because it is a PRS affiliated match. I got information on it on our Facebook page. It's Cheyenne Precision Rifle Hoedown. I put all the info on there. There's the sign up and everything. And then I put details leading up to the match of what the round count is going to be, what time the stage brief or what time the safety brief is going to be, and stuff like that.
When you get a chance, Sam, send that information to me in a email, and I'll post it on all our socials and all that good stuff. And anytime you have anything going on like that you'd like some help socializing, feel free to kick that stuff to me, and I'll push it out on our socials and our newsletters and anything else that we got going on. I don't think I asked Ray this the last time he was on. Besides that freaking 50 cal can that he was showing me, is there any new products coming out that you can talk about?
Well, we released the Ultra Series with the hub configuration. So basically every can can come in hub, so people could use their aftermarket mounts. We're still doing R&D on the 50. The 45 came out. There is works on 2 projects. I unfortunately can't talk about them, but there is a couple things coming down from the engineering and R&D team that is going to be pretty awesome.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Well, folks, I can't say it enough. We try to do our best to vet companies, and try to find like-minded people that we want to do business with. And, I think Thunder Beast Arms really does, represent that. And again, we've had a great experience dealing with them. And I can tell you, not even some of the companies that we really like and we promote their products and things like that. Thunder Beast Arms is one of the best experiences we've had. So I would say definitely continue to support them. I would definitely say continue to support us. Definitely do that. But no, look, we appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Anything else you want to talk about before we get you out of here, Sam? I know we've kept you here an hour and a half already.
No, I think that's it. If there's anything else that comes down, like, here in like a month or two, if we have enough questions or you want to create some content to do another one, I'm up for it. So just give me a heads up.
Awesome.
We can narrow down some more topics and, kind of chat like we did.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, Sam, we really appreciate you coming on, and we appreciate what you guys over there at Thunder Beast are doing. Tell Ray I said hello. Folks, we always appreciate you guys showing up. We always appreciate the support. Definitely go check out what we have going on Patreon. If you haven't checked out the video of shooting these dummies back here with the 300 PRC, that was a fun video, so make sure you go check that out. And again, we got additional content. If you got questions on the Ultra Series, the Dominus, what else? The Magnus, go check out our videos on that. Definitely go check out Ray's videos. I posted a link. A lot of good information, a lot of good content that he has going on there. Well, folks, we're going to call it a night. We always appreciate you showing up. Thank you for your support. And until next time, you guys stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.